You're watching PowerNation.
Today on Carcass, we keep working on our Spec Miata Racecar, beefing up the subframe. We'll install a sportier clutch to handle the track abuse and add some new struts, giving our Mazda a true coilover setup.
Then we'll help it stop faster with some performance goodies for the turns. Hey guys, welcome to Carcass, where our little Spec Miata is really starting to take shape, and we've already managed to strip the entire interior and add a roll cage. And as you can see, we have the engine, transmission, and subframe out of the car because there's a couple of things that we want to tackle.
Yes, while we have everything out of here, we're going to take care of the suspension and brake system. We'll take the engine and transmission out and put a new clutch in it. And then while the subframe is bare, we will add some reinforcements to solve a common problem among Miata race cars.
And then at the end, we're just going to toss this back up underneath the car, get some wheels and tires on it, set it on the ground. We'll be one step closer to making this thing hit the track.
Yeah. So where do you want to start? Engine and transmission?
Yeah, we'll get this all out of here. I'll go get the cherry picker or the forklift. That's probably easier.
Yeah, yep. A little more. Stop.
Kind of jammed in there a little bit. Yeah, like a pry bar or something.
Maybe.
Just waiting for him to get tools. Never prepared, Jimmy. Never prepared.
Why wouldn't it just come out easy?
Well, that's what I would assume as well. There
you go.
You all right?
Yeah, don't step under heavy things.
Right.
All right.
You good?
Yeah.
How's this side? Because it looks like it's still engaged. Oh, no, we're good.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh, got a hose that came up. That's probably enough, huh?
Yeah, it's good.
Grab the connector for the oxygen sensor on this side. So don't tear that off.
All right.
Ready? Backing up. Exhaust okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's simple. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, that's lighter. No engine, no trains on it. That's way easier. Flip it over. Which way? This way?
Yeah. Cool.
A lot simpler to work on, right?
Yeah. Just clean it up a little bit. We'll be good. Something that's really common with Miatas that are driven very, very hard is that the subframe will crack where the lower control arm mounting bracket is welded to the subframe. This sharp corner in here is a stress riser, so over time when this subframe has seen millions and millions of loading cycles, the steel will fatigue and then it'll crack. To mitigate that issue before it happens, we have these subframe reinforcements that will weld in. These are very common to use with guys that do HPDE or actually race in Spec Miata. So I just have to prep the subframe, weld it, and then we'll move on. To get the subframe reinforcements in, I'll start by grinding the paint off. Tacking the reinforcements to make sure everything is lined up, and final weld it in. All right, so we got everything welded in. We won't have to worry about our subframe cracking. This thing's gonna be nice and strong for us on the track, and now we'll just protect it with a coat of paint. All right, this thing's all wrapped up. We'll just wait for it to dry, and then this will be ready for brake and suspension work.
Coming up, we give our transmission a little pep with a new clutch setup. All right, guys, well, Jimmy's worked his magic on the subframe. He's welded the reinforcements in, and now it's time to move on to the engine, transmission, and the clutch setup. Now, this is going to be a race car for the rest of its life, so it's a good idea to do some maintenance issues like this. It's pretty simple to get to. All we got to do is take out a couple of bolts, and then we'll get rid of the clutch, the flywheel, and we'll do something with the pressure plate as well. Before we take off the transmission, we'll have to remove the starter, followed by the slave cylinder. Get the transmission off of here. Pretty small, pretty light thing. Simple enough. Get it out of the way. Pretty dirty though. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell this, but this clutch setup looks pretty much brand new. Now, we weren't told that when we bought the car, but it doesn't matter anyways, because per spec rules, we can actually run a performance style clutch. So we were just gonna end up replacing this one anyways. So the clutch that we're going to be running is an ACT clutch that we got from Summit Racing. Now, in the spec rule book, they actually give you the part number for this specific clutch. It's got a 6-pad racing disc, comes with the pressure plate, the pilot bearing, throwout bearing, and the alignment tool. And where we're going to get started is we have to get the old pilot bearing out and install the new one. Easy way to do this, just slide the bearing in, use a socket that's about the same diameter as the outside. And just give her some taps and get it in there. That'll work. All right, now before we install the clutch and the pressure plate, it's a good idea to either have your flywheel machined or turned down, but in our case, since this whole setup was new anyways, you can actually still feel the grooves or the machining grooves that are in the flywheel here, so we know it's in really good shape. All I'm gonna do is use a little bit of solvent and we'll just wipe it down, put the clutch and the pressure plate on it. Now we'll grease up the threads here just a little bit. Put her together, it goes smoothly. And then we can throw everything together. Get my hands clean too. Make sure and add just a bit of thread locker to these before we hammer them down. Jimmy, why do seagulls live by the sea?
Because they're not bagels.
Dang it, he knew it! It's terrible. Because if they lived by the bay, they'd be called bagels. Come on, man, that's funny.
Yeah, I've heard that about 7,000 times.
Well, 7,001's good, too.
Yeah.
All right, the last thing we need to do is replace the throwout bearing inside the bell housing here, but it's pretty filthy. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this up. We'll get the new throwout bearing in it, and then we'll just put the whole assembly back together. This thing's filthy dirty in here. But this was a good idea. let's get this on the table. We'll get the new bearing in. These are simple to install. Just pop out the old one and slide the new one on. All right, let's get this transmission back on here, and we'll just keep rocking and rolling. All right, the last thing we're gonna do before we set this thing back in the cradle is we'll go ahead and replace the old motor mounts. It's just one more thing we can do for maintenance. All right, well, get this old mount off of here. It's pretty simple. It's got a little locking pin down there. Let's put the new one on, set that locking pin into place there a little bit. I'll reuse the old nut that goes on there. Tighten this one down, and then get this back on the motor. Be one step closer to getting this back in the subframe, and then from here we'll start working on the suspension and the brakes.
We take our Miata suspension to the next level, adding new coilovers. Jeremy's got the new clutch installed, and I'm ready to keep moving forward with the suspension. I do need a couple pieces from the old struts, so I'm going to take those off, and then we'll get all the new stuff installed on the subframe. When you're using a spring compressor like this, or any spring compressor for that matter, it's best to stand off to the side just in case something happens, and it'll decrease your chances of getting hit. We only need the top hat from the strut, so I'll take these two nuts off and the hat will just slide off. With the hat off the old strut, we can start assembling the new ones. They consist of a damper from Bilstein and a spring from Eibach, both of which we got from Summit Racing, and the part numbers are in the Spec Miata rulebook, so it's all really easy to find. And we also have the accompanying hardware to put it together. That's it. To finish this thing off, we're going with a pad and rotor combo by Hawk Performance. These are going to deal with the heat quite a bit better in a track scenario, and it's just going to help us stop faster. All right, and then the last thing, just gonna clean the surface real quick with some brake clean.
All right, so Jimmy's got the front all buttoned up, and in the rear, it's pretty much the exact same thing. We'll get the pads and the rotors out of the way, get rid of that old strut, and we'll replace it with all the new stuff. Find somewhere to pry there. Get this thing off here. It's seized up. All right. There's a fun little fact about the rotors here. So there is a couple of holes here on the face of the rotor, but one of those holes is actually threaded. That's made for, so you guys put a bolt into that hole, and you grab your impact, and what that does is it pushes force on the hub, and it releases the rotor from the hub. Just like that. All right, now we'll just go ahead and pull the bolts and get the strut out of here. There. With the bottom bolt removed, we'll head up top. We'll just use this big bar here to get the strut out. I gotta kind of push everybody down. We will wobble it up. There it goes. We'll go switch this out, just like Jimmy's. Try to weasel this in here. All right, that buttons up the suspension. Just gotta throw the brakes on this thing, and then we'll get the engine and subframe back in this car. We'll finish it off with some sway bars. Up next, we add the final touches to our suspension and reinstall our stronger subframe. You know, these coilovers look pretty darn nice.
Yeah, this thing looks good.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got all the new suspension components and brake components on the subframe, so now we're ready to put the engine back in here and get it up under the car.
And before we get this thing fully assembled, we'll go ahead and take care of the sway bars because they're easy to get to. I'll go get the forklift, and we'll get all this bolted up underneath here, and then at the very end, we'll make it a roller.
Yep, perfect. We're replacing our old sway bar with a bigger one from Eibach that we got from Summit Racing.
Tell me when I can go forward.
Keep going up. All right, let's go. All right. Stop right there. Start going down a little bit. Keep going. Stop.
Power steering hose.
Shimmy some stuff around here.
Okay.
Go down very slow.
Very slow.
Stop.
Okay. You gotta engage those like studs, one side then the next.
All right, go down.
Going slowly, give me a second.
That's good. Right there.
You in?
Yeah.
Perfect. Put the nuts on it. How's that look?
Yep.
All right. Help you quick. Center the engine off of the Miata symbol on the bumper. I don't know if it's right, but that's what I'm gonna do. What do you think? Yeah?
Sure.
Sure. All right.
Figure something out.
I'm gonna lower it down a little bit. And we'll
Oh, come forward a little bit. Keep coming. A little more. A little more. Nice.
It's just like eking on the thing.
All right.
I'm gonna lower it down, then we'll get the jack stands closed.
All right.
Slowly going down. Like that? That'll work? Backing up. Good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Love the enthusiasm.
Make this easier on ourselves, we're gonna use a plumb bob. Drop this down and see how close we are. I say that's pretty close.
Put it together.
Here we go.
It'll take a while, but
I've got about an inch until the strut engages.
all right, I think that pretty much buttons this whole thing up. Let's get the wheels and tires back on this, and we'll get it down to the prep booth. Start taking care of this faded out paint, this crummy clear coat.
Yeah, we'll make it look good.
Yeah, get some parts to get back on here though, and then we'll get the tires and the wheels on it. Make our pile of parts go down a little bit.
If you like anything you've seen on today's show, go to PowerNationTV.com.